Life is often so busy, taking us here, there, seemingly everywhere. When you aren't able to make it to church, we hope you are fed and nourished by listening to the preaching of God's Word wherever you are at the moment. In the meantime, take care, and God bless.
Good morning and welcome to St. Andrew Lutheran Church. Good to have all of you here on this cool, fresh summer morning here as we gather around a topic here, as you see on the screen, anger, in a sermon about anger. All this month, we're actually talking about some of these giants that we face. The sermon series is called Facing Giants. And in the 9 years that I've been here at St. Andrew, we want to be really intentional about how it is that we live out our faith in daily life. That's our mission statement. But we also want to be honest. We want to have some plain talk. We want to be able to air some of these things, talk about them, and maybe not only would it help us within our own community, but even more importantly, how might it guide us and affect life as we go about our routines in our own families and in our community, in our work, and so forth. So we're facing giants here during this month of June, and we're facing one called anger. And so this is one of those very personal emotions that we experience and feel. These faces that you see on those logo heads are buried somewhere in my boys' tubs of Legos down in the basement. They don't play with them other than on special occasions now that they're at the age that they're at. But they demonstrate for us, they illustrate for us some of the stuff that maybe we feel more on the inside than we demonstrate on the outside sometimes when we encounter times when we are angry. But we want to talk about the reality of anger here, and I think there are different kinds of anger. Now, not only is this the type of anger that I've experienced personally, but in my work and in my times with people, anger can be a pretty common thread of understanding. If someone's been diagnosed with something, if there's a family that's experiencing disharmony and they need to express it constructively, anger and frustration. Just this past week, had an intervention with the family. Anger is a real emotion. Who among you has not been angry from time to time? And so Jesus, in our passage here today, is getting into that some, and we experience it in life as well. And I think there is anger that's more episodic, that's kind of a one-off anger that we might feel or experience, and then it goes away. And then there's some anger that's chronic, that just keeps on coming or keeps on creeping up. And you know what it feels like to get angry. I mean, there's a tightness that happens in my chest anyway when I feel like something's coming on. Anger can sometimes be really acute like that, and sometimes it can be a little more muted. Anger can be sometimes. It's handy to have anger at a distance. Maybe it's somebody who doesn't live in the state, and so you can just live separate if it's a person. But if they're close by, it's a whole nother matter. Anger of the past, sometimes, water under the bridge. Sometimes we learn and grow where we live with something that goes on and on. But anger that's like right now, anger that's right now in the present is a whole different matter. Sometimes we're not very good at confronting anger at all, or those frustrations, and so under the carpet it goes, or under the table it goes, and we just try to live life as though nothing's happening. Very common way. Sometimes it's confronted. Not so easy at times, but it is confronted. Sometimes anger also is justified. Sometimes it's seemingly unreasonable. But of course, that's where it gets to be very personal, doesn't it? What I think is reasonable is unreasonable for someone else. Hence, there is anger and contentiousness in the relationship that exists. So Jesus, in this passage here today, is talking about the Christian community. And if we are coming, for instance, to worship, he says, in God's house, and we're in community together, and you feel anger against someone, then Jesus is saying specifically, leave everything behind. Leave your offerings, leave stuff behind, just settle the circumstance. Reconcile is the word that Jesus uses. Because when you're in here in that kind of frame of mind, you're not going to get anything out of anything that's going on in the service and in community. You're completely distracted. How many of us have felt that way in a time of conflict where you just can't get anything else in your mind except that certain thing? Well, a little bit later on in the Gospel of Matthew, in Matthew 19, Jesus gets a little bit even more specific and says, if you're in conflict with someone, go and talk to them, okay? Go and talk to them. If that person then, if there still continues to be a conflict, invite someone to come alongside, and then you do it 2 people with the 1 person. And then if that doesn't work, then it becomes a community thing. Find the right way to take it to the community. So this concept isn't very foreign in any HR circumstance in a way. I mean, for anybody who's worked in a corporation or a company, that there is, you manage and you work through disagreements, and that sounds very reasonable, but that's also very biblical. Also something very clear for us to think about and to wonder about as we navigate and to figure out how to go through those sometimes contentious circumstances. And I want to talk about 3 things here this morning, images. I want to talk about how we live with a coexistence with anger sometimes. We coexist with it in our lives. I want to talk about staying on track. If we want to be on a better path, how do we stay on track? And then also I want to talk a bit about what I would call like a righteous anger. Like there's anger that can be used as a tool, that makes for positive growth in ourselves and in society. But first, let's talk about the coexistence with anger. That's part of everyday life. So my son Liam graduated on Monday night from Edina High School. So not only did he make it, but Michelle and I made it. Woo! So we have our 3rd graduated, and so we're in this wonderful stage here of college bound and so forth. But in the process of preparing for our open house, we started going through those thousands of digital pictures that we have, right? And then all the stories that those pictures elicit, and what should we print and have available at our open house. And we came across this photograph from. If Liam there in the black hat is 18 now, what is he there? 7 years old, so 13 years ago or something. This picture was taken at Harney Peak, at Custer State Park in South Dakota. Has anybody been to Harney Peak? Walk that walk, maybe? It is a 3.5-mile walk, 1,100 feet elevation change. Then you come back down. And so, but we thought, well, the boys are that age. Alex is on the right. He's a man. No problem for him. But Andrew and Liam were younger, so we set out, the 5 of us, Michelle and me and the 3 boys. About halfway up, we start hearing it from Andrew and Liam. It's a really hard walk. We're going up it's 1,100 feet of elevation change, and they go on and on and on. And then finally, before we get to the top, Michelle just turns to me, in all honesty, and we parents will do this. She said, "Can we kill them?" It's like, please, let's get all the way, okay, let's please get all the way to the top. So we got all the way to the top, and then when I saw this picture, Michelle and I were all laughing, because we're remembering this story. And then here's this t-shirt that Andrew was wearing. No one trains to be backup, yet he's not going to make it to Harney Peak very easily, is he? Not at all. But it made me start thinking about being a dad and Michelle and I being parents, and about how many times has it been the car seat, or it's been, an accident, somewhere, or it's been, hiking to Harney Peak, or whatever the circumstance, where we get that kind of, come on. And how when I look back, I don't remember those things very much anymore. I think there's something to be said about relationship and joy and love that have a way of overshadowing some of those angry moments, where we coexist with those angry moments in relationship, but we still figure out the best way forward. I tell people when they're mourning the loss of a loved one, to make an analogy, that there's always going to be a hole in their lives because of the loved one that they've had to say goodbye to. And there's even going to be anger around that too as well, right? But someone far smarter than me said a long time ago that over time, there get to be other stories of family, of joy, of celebration that get bigger and bigger. That whole will always stay the same size, but maybe it just becomes overshadowed by all the other positive things that happen alongside it. And so then we go along life then living with one with the other at the same time. We coexist with it. I think there's a lot of grace in that. I think there's a lot of hope in that. That angry moments don't always stand up to the test of time, that they do indeed find a place to live with. But I'm not going to deny that it doesn't exist either. That's not very realistic, because we do get angry. It's an authentic human emotion that we need to use to express ourselves in constructive ways, but we need to be able to do that. So I also want to talk about staying on track. Staying on track and making our way through this process. If we want, as Christian people, to live faithfully, and we want to follow Jesus' instructions here to confront peacefully, with in faith, to be part of it. We want to be part of this process. We have to stay on track. And so another story, too, from this past week on Monday, Michelle also was in my car with me. We were on Technology Drive coming up to Mitchell Road, right up here. Busy intersection, Technology and Mitchell. We're in the left-hand turn lane. And we're waiting for the light to change. And lo and behold, right in front of me is a turtle. Now, this turtle isn't like going slowly. The turtle is actually moving along pretty quickly. But I remember turning to Michelle and looking at the turtle and saying, this is going to be a total disaster right in front of our eyes. It's a busy intersection, right? Does everybody see what's in the roadway right there? And so here I am sitting in the driver's seat, not only looking out the windshield at the turtle that's there, but I'm also looking in my rearview mirror, because guess what? The light has changed. And it's green, and I'm not going. So the people behind me can't see what's going on in front of me. They can't see there's an animal in the road in front of me. And my concern with it is that I'm going to start getting someone who's going to start getting angry with me for not seeing that the light has changed. Maybe I'm looking at my phone or something like that. None of us do that at all at a stoplight, right? So I'm concerned about that happening behind me. There's 2 or 3 cars, and the light is green, the light is green, the light is green. Now, thankfully, the good news is that a man and a woman, 50s or so, they pull over, and maybe he's an emergency responder, but he cuts into the intersection, and he creates this little barrier. And his wife jumps out of the passenger seat. She reaches down and picks up the turtle on both sides, holds up the turtle, and then walks it across the street. And what does everybody do in the intersection? Everybody freezes, because it's a turtle. And so if you're in a hurry, or if you're getting angry, or if you're getting that kind of swell, then it's all off, because let's let this woman get this turtle by the side of the road. Michelle and I are applauding in the car as well. I couldn't do that. I don't know. I'm afraid of the teeth or the snappers or whatever. But this woman was not at all and got through. But why? My point is that we have to stay on track. And so when I'm at this stoplight and I'm looking behind me thinking people are going to be getting angry behind me, they just don't know the whole story. So maybe if you're the person that's behind me, 2 or 3 cars, maybe you don't know the whole story around this. So before we let it all well up and we lay on the horn or go around me and see the turtle in the middle of the road, maybe we ask God for a little patience and a little time and slow down and let the situation develop out as it should. We have to stay, I think, on track. When we think about being constructive with our anger, think about what fuels anger. Is it social media? Is it news? Is it repetitive stories over and over again? Check yourself. Check yourself. Don't let it get you down that path so quickly that you can't see the forest for the trees, okay? And then lastly, I want to talk about channeling our anger. As I said in my intro, anger is not all a bad thing. It can be the power sometimes that moves us, that makes us different people, that makes us strive, right? Makes us try to achieve something. Anger can be a positive thing. Last fall, I was listening to one of my normal podcasts that I listen to because I'm a baseball fan, and so I listen to ESPN Baseball Tonight probably a couple days a week or so, and they have these frequent contributors that contribute to the season late in the year in October. And Sarah Langs was again making her weekly contribution, and I had been remembering from previous weeks that she was sounding as her voice was slurred, her speaking was slurred. And I remember saying out loud to Michelle, I said, it's like Sarah's drunk or something. She's on the podcast and she's like she's been drinking or something. It's really, I have to turn it up because I don't understand her, you know? So I was judging her. So a couple weeks after that then, I was again listening to the podcast about baseball with the announcement that Sarah Langs, at 28 years old, was developing now later stage ALS. So that made me, like Peter, check yourself, because I didn't know the whole story. But she went on and they dedicated the whole program. They talked baseball and stuff, but she's going to die. She's a terrific expert, a statistician in baseball, loves analytics, and a very kind young woman who's made her way not just in ESPN, but into the major league clubhouses and the work that she's done, and people really look up to her, and now she has ALS and her speech is slurring, and she's still on the podcast. She's still doing things. In fact, a week and a half ago Friday was Lou Gehrig's day. And so Lou Gehrig, of course, is the main baseball figure who was diagnosed with ALS and died, and we all know that story. Well, he took a side step, and every baseball stadium put Sarah Langs' picture on the scoreboard and talked about Sarah Langs. So you may not be a baseball fan, but I know it well enough. And they have been loving on her, how she has turned her anger at a disease that's going to kill her into a movement. Sure, she has these billionaire, almost practically, owners, I guess, but ball players. She's got a mouthpiece. Even just on the podcast on Friday, they were talking about it again. Sarah Langs' day, it was. Instead of Lou Gehrig's day, it was Sarah Langs' day. But there's a movement that takes place from someone who's angry, and she was angry until she said, maybe, just maybe, in a little way, I can raise some money so that someone else doesn't have to die from Lou Gehrig's disease. It makes me think of our friend David Saunders, right, who died a few years ago here at St. Andrew, who we walked with all the way to his own death. Anger, channeled, makes a difference. When Jesus got angry, and he got angry, there were about particular things that he was looking at and experiencing in his ministry, and anger was a mission for him in very direct ways. So, when Jesus got angry, like for instance, when the man came into the synagogue and the Pharisees were saying, you will not heal him because this is the day when the Lord doesn't work. And Jesus got angry with them and said, God heals on the Sabbath. God doesn't take a day off. God's care and compassion doesn't take a day off. And so he got angry. It's part of the Greek word for anger is in that passage. When the disciples stopped the children from coming to him, Jesus became indignant with them, which is another words of saying he talked sternly to them and said, to them is the kingdom of God. Let them come to me. He was indignant because it's important. When Lazarus died and Mary and Martha, his sisters, were grieving, Jesus in the book of John says was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. Not only because Lazarus was his friend and he stayed with Lazarus and Mary and Martha in Bethany where they lived when Jesus came down to Jerusalem, But I think he was also greatly disturbed and moved of spirit because his resurrection hadn't happened yet. And his friends were sad because they didn't know that the resurrection was true. And so he didn't get a chance to do that yet. His ministry wasn't done yet. Easter hadn't happened yet. But he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. Jesus needed people to know that they're loved forever, in other words. And then we all remember Jesus cleansing the temple, where the temple had become just a place of a marketplace. So it's a house of prayer. It's not a den of robbers. So my question to you as we gather here today, and this isn't a question of judgment at all, but I want you to think about what maybe in your life, as you look out in the world, what makes you angry? And what might you be able, even in a little way, to do something about it? Sometimes I feel like in our life and in our culture, we don't get angry enough. We don't know what to get angry about, or we're concerned about being this side or that side, or who's going to judge me for that. But if something is wrong, on Saturday morning, if you want to join me for the 5K Fight the Human Trafficking event in Purgatory Creek, come and join me for a 5K run. I'll pick the 10-minute mile pace, not a big deal. But who's in favor of human trafficking? Pick something. It makes me angry when I hear Detective Carter Staff, a member here at St. Andrew, tell stories about the operations that he runs with the surrounding community that is going on just around here. That's a good anger. So we have to pick something. Jesus had all these places where he picked, if something is wrong, you try, at least in a little way, to make it right. So think about that. Jesus gets angry too, and he works. So let's join him. So ultimately, the giant in the room here is our Lord, is God. And I love the passage, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. Slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love. It's all over the Bible. Those are just a few of the references. We don't have anything to be concerned about. God's anger is tempered in the love of Jesus. It also is a graceful phrase to say that God, the one who loves you and who created you, cares for you and wants the very best for you. The times when we get angry, the times that we get frustrated, maybe in all practical intents and purposes, in God's eyes, the creator of the northern lights and the stars and the moon and all that is, who are we? God's care and compassion and its steadfast love abides forever. We are little people in our walk of life. We are just little specks in the midst of the greatness. We're the micro and God is the macro. When God creates things like puppies, how could we be angry when God creates puppies? Well, maybe piddle a little bit, but that's what comes with the territory. But how about when someone places a baby in your arms? Where's anger when a baby is in your arms? As a church, we sing a song about being humble this morning, and we're humbled. God is God. We are not God. We get angry. God's steadfast love endures forever. But God is in these towering Gothic cathedrals like this one in Iceland that tells us that, we are really, really small. But ultimately, like this picture in Egypt from a couple of months ago when we were there with a group of people, it's very up close and personal, the cross of Christ that dwells with us, around us, for us, to support us and encourage us. Christ crucified, that love and that promise accompanies us when we're happy and when we're sad and when we're angry too. How do we channel it? How do we acknowledge its existence with us? And how do we, as people of God, move forward with purpose and love, but always trusting in the grace of God that dwells for us and is with us forever? So good luck. Let's live and live well and live well-intentioned. Jesus calls us to those tasks. Thanks be to God. Amen.
You think about how you will live out your faith each day. If you would like to support the ministries at St. Andrew Lutheran Church, you can do so by having your credit card information available and then texting a gift to 952-260-9007. Thank you, and God bless.